Okay.
It says it's now streaming live.
I believe we are. So.
Yeah.
So. And here we are.
Oh.
So Shabbat Shalom, one and all. We are on one of our fifth Fridays, and that means Rabbi's Choice, I'm told. I had thought what a wonderful opportunity to teach a little bit about a little known festival called Lag BaOmer, or the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer. And had there not been a tragedy in Israel at this event yesterday, perhaps no one would ever have even heard of this minor festival. It is meant to be a time of great joy and celebration, marking the 33rd day of the 49-day or 7-week countdown between Passover and Shavuot. And there are many stories and traditions associated with it. And of course, many of them are overshadowed, as I say, by a Lag BaOmer festival gone awry in Israel, in the city of Meron. So we will go through our service talking about the holiday, the festival itself, and what it means, as well as the current event as well. It is indeed a festival of lighting bonfires. So I thought, what a perfect opportunity to light our Shabbat candles. And I have an additional candle, which was meant to be a Shabbat candle, but in essence also becomes a yahrzeit candle at this point, because there were a lot of deaths in Meron yesterday. And so if you have your candles, we hope that you will kindle them. And we ask everyone to light their lights. And mine are here. They just don't show. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. The festival of the counting of the Omer is a biblical commandment, but you have to have a temple to count the Omer, and that's why so few of us know very much about this particular day. We are told in the book of Leviticus, you will count down from the second day of Passover, when the Omer grain, and this is the barley grain, is to be brought as an offering for 7 complete weeks. And the day after the 7th week makes it 50 days, and you present a special new kind of barley offering to God. So the word Omer literally means a sheaf of wheat. And as you can see, we count down. We literally bring a sheaf of wheat every day from the day immediately after Passover, all the way every day for 7 full weeks, giving you a countdown of 49. And on the 50th day, it is our festival of Shavuot. And you might recognize from Christianity, the same word is used for the Christian calendar that counts from Easter to what they say is Pentecost. So we have something similar. Each of these days, and probably because it was the barley harvest and there wasn't time for anything else, became almost a time of mourning when no festivals took place. There wasn't music played, there weren't weddings, there was no shaving or hair cutting, the variety of things that we do in a time of leisure, except on the 33rd day, there was a day of release, and that was the Lamed Gimel the 33rd day, or Lag BaOmer. That indeed was the day when weddings could take place and people could participate in a variety of festivities, which became the later traditions that we celebrated just yesterday. And so before we find out what those were about and why they happened, we will have the beginnings of our prayer service. We begin with our call to worship, and Mary's unmuting and I am muting, and we begin with the Baruch.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach. HaMevorach, HaMevorach, Le'olam va'ad. HaMevorach, HaMevorach, Le'olam va'ad.
And we continue with Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam ve'Yisrael Amcha ata, Amcha ata. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadita, otanu limadita. Aken Adonai Eloheinu b'shakbenu, Ukumenu nahasiat bechukacha, v'nismat b'divrei Toratcha, u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ad. Ki hem chayenu, v'horet yameinu, Uvam naga yomam v'layla, naga yomam v'layla. V'yahavat cha'al tasir, mimeinu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
God, you love your people Israel by giving us the gift of Torah and learning and the wisdom that we derive from it. And so we proclaim the oneness, the eternity of the God of all people and peoples with our Shema.
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam va'ad.
So why we say, is there specifically this day, this one day in a 50-day countdown, and why is it the 33rd day of the counting of this countdown that becomes the special day? And there are many, many different traditions and different stories. One of them goes back to Rabbi Akiva, who we might remember lived in Judea at the time. He was born in 50 and lived to 135 CE. And those students of history know that this was the time that Rome was indeed occupying this land, and indeed even destroyed the temple when Akiva was a young man himself. So he lived in a tumultuous time when Judaism had to retool and figure out how to live and how to keep Judaism going without a temple. You may remember or know the famous story of Rabbi Akiva, who was an uneducated worker, but fell in love with the daughter of his boss. Her name was Rachel. They fell in love and were married, running away to marry without the father's permission. And because he was an uneducated soul, Rachel encouraged him to go study. He studied for 7 years and then came back thinking she'd be a little annoyed that he hadn't taken out the garbage once. And immediately she turned him back and said, go back and study for 7 more years. Now, the sharp mind might say this might be a little bit of a legend, because we know that Akiva might be and is the Aramaic version of Jacob. And the story of working for 14 years for his beloved might be a little bit of an echo of the Torah itself. In any event, Akiva lived his life in the shadow of the Roman regime. The Romans always were quashing resistance to the Jewish people. They forced them to assimilate. They restricted their religious liberties, and they taxed them and desecrated any site that the Jews felt were holy. However, Rabbi Akiva was so wise that he built up a mass of 24,000 students who fought in many ways. They fought to keep the Jewish tradition alive through Torah and study and the creation of the first line that would be called the later Talmud itself. Some say that his students also fought in battles against Rome, that Akiva himself was a supporter of Bar Kokhba, who was a revolutionary who literally tried to fight off the Romans instead. And the Talmud tells us that almost all of Rabbi Akiva's students died. 12,000 pairs, all 24,000 died. And only on the day of Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, did the plague, whatever this plague was, stopped. And so only 5 students survived for Rabbi Akiva. Now, what was exactly that plague? The Talmud tells us that the students didn't respect one another, and so God sent down a plague, which lasted for 33 days and then ceased on the 33rd day. That might be a little bit of a cover up. It is perhaps more likely, some people believe, that they actually were secret fighters in the Bar Kokhba revolution, but that the writers of the Talmud could not let Rome know such things were going on in the Jewish underground of fighting. Whatever happened on the 33rd day, there was a release and there was an end to the dying or the plague or perhaps the revolution. And so it became a day of great revelry, and we would celebrate a day on which the death stopped. The final legend to tell you about Rabbi Akiva, is, you might remember, is as a student of Torah, which the Romans did not like. He told the famous story that studying or giving up the study of Torah would be like when the fox asked the fish, who was scared of being netted by a human's net. The fox said, well, come out on land and live with me. And he said, this would be what it would be like for the Jews, that Torah for Jews is like water for fish. And we are not so foolish as to give up our water or our Torah, for we know that will bring about death. We'll take our chances in the water or with the story of the Torah, which will be our natural habitat. And so it was that we know that Rabbi Akiva was literally in the end executed by Rome, burned at the stake, and we are told that he died with the words of the Shema on his lips. He was a great hero, and it was the day that his students survived, only 5 of them, but the 5 survived, and that was the day that we mark on Lag BaOmer. And so we turn to our liturgy again, and the prayers, that many of which were developed even near this time as well, prayers that would take the place of the sacrifices at the temple, and a very rubric of the offerings that we give is still with us today with our Amidah. So those who would like to stand, we rise for the Amidah. Are you Adonai Sifatayim or am I? I am. Adonai Sifatai Tiftachu Fi Yagid Tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzhak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibur v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Koneh Hakol V'Zocher Chaste Avot V'Imahot Umevi Gula Livnei V'Nehem Leman Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Be'ezrat Sarah Ata Gibur La'olam Adonai Mechayeh HaKol Ata Rav LaHoshia Mechalkel Chayim B'Chesed Mechayeh HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umakayeh Emunato Lishenei Afar Micha Mocha Baal Givurot Umido Melach Melech Memihit Umachayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman Atah Lahachayot HaKol Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh HaKol Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalalucha selah Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Probably a little more pinpointed is the story that Lag BaOmer was the yahrzeit or the anniversary of the death of one of Akiva's surviving students, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The Talmud in Masechet Shabbat tells that while teaching Torah to a new student, Yehuda ben Gerim, Yehuda said, "Isn't it wonderful all the great new public works the Romans have brought to us? Since they've conquered us, they built beautiful marketplaces and bridges and bathhouses." And Rabbi Shimon would not agree that anything secular or Roman could be good. And he said they've only done this for their own benefit. They built the marketplaces to have their own prostitutes. The bathhouses are there for them to pamper themselves. And their bridges are just there to tax us when we use them. They're exploiting us, and there is nothing positive about what the Romans' progress has brought us. So when the Romans caught wind that Rabbi Bar Yochai had criticized them, they sentenced him to death. And so it is that he went with his son, Reb Elazar, and fled and hid in what we are told is this very cave. Every day, he and his son would follow the same routine according to the Talmud. They were worried that their clothes were going to wear out, and so they would remove all of their clothes. They would only save their clothes for prayer when you had to be dressed in your best. But you can't, apparently, you're not allowed to walk around and study Torah naked. And so they would bury themselves in sand and would study Torah all day long. And only for their daily prayers would they get out of the sand and dress and pray and return to learning Torah in the sand. They did this for 12 years in this particular cave in a city known as Meron, which one can see from Tzfat when one looks over to the hills and the mountains. You see Mount Meron, and indeed this is the alleged cave of the rabbis. We are told that a miracle occurred and a carob tree and a spring of water came to sustain them for the entire 12 years. And when you go to visit, you are told that this is a shoot off of the original carob tree. After 12 years, Elijah the prophet came and stood in the entrance of the cave and informed Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that the emperor had died and that he could come out of hiding. So they emerged from the cave and they looked around and saw that everybody was working in their farms and in commerce and doing all the busyness of regular life. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was so upset after spending all of this time just in study. He said, the people are abandoning Torah and they are working at earthly pursuits, and this is a terrible thing. And everywhere that he looked, his eyes were blazing fire and it burned up. Finally, a divine voice came and said, we didn't let you out of the cave simply to burn everything up. Go back to the cave. And so Rabbi Shimon and his son went for one more year inside the cave, where he learned to control his temper. And the next time he came out, he was more able to deal with people and their secular pursuits. And so it was that he moved on. Now, while he was in this isolation, one could imagine that you get pretty intense in your studies. He was cut off from community and had access only to his insights. And it was in this place of great isolation that Rabbi Shimon discovered or sensed or learned mystical thought. And we are told that that which he learned was indeed the underpinnings of the Zohar. He is called the author of the Zohar, which is the mystical text, which was the very basis of the Kabbalah that we study today. We are told that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai dictated the Zohar on his deathbed on Lag BaOmer, and when he was speaking, a miracle occurred, and that is that daylight extended for as long as it took for him to complete his dictation and share all the mystical secrets that he held. Others say that the walls broke out in fire and were burning, but were never consumed. In any event, to mark this extended daylight or the fire on the walls, the bonfire of Lag BaOmer, his yard site, became the most important feature of marking his life and his death. And we see here what is his gravesite. And we know that on Lag BaOmer that thousands and thousands of Hasidic, kind of the inheritors of mystical thought, come to Mount Meron, and they make their bonfires to mark the yard site of Shimon Bar Yochai. He said that he did not want his death to be a day of sadness, but rather a day of celebration. And so we now understand why so many pilgrims on this day go to Mount Meron. And so we ask for peace for those people in Israel, and of course, peace for the whole land and the whole world. We felt that lying down in peace and rising up was indeed a valid and wonderful prayer for today. And so we turn to Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu makenu lecha the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom. V'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom. V'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Lechaim. Lechaim.
And we ask for peace not only for the world and for all people, we ask for peace for those who are in need of wholeness of their bodies and of their souls. We turn to our Misha Berach prayer, our prayer asking for the healing and strengthening of individuals who are suffering in our midst. The whole nation of Israel is suffering and needs our Misha Berach. The whole world that suffers and is struggling through a plague and how to get out of this plague is asking for our Misha Berach. And we also pause and take a moment to say the names of those for whom we would like to offer healing and wholeness. And so if you would like to unmute yourself and mention those names, we ask you to do this now. If you are in our Facebook congregation, if you type the names into our comments, hopefully we will get them in time to name them before we sing Misha Berach.
Arlene Graham, Arlene Morris, and Jim Johnson.
Misha Berach Avotenu, Abraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Misha Berach Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Misha Berach Avotenu, Abraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Misha Berach Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
So we begin to understand some of the many traditions that are associated, or some of the fun games and ideas that are associated with this Lag BaOmer festival, but of course are meant for frivolity and for fun, and never to be a sign or an idea of national tragedy as they became. We know that the bonfires, we are told, could represent the signal fires that Bar Kokhba's soldiers put on the mountains, or perhaps the bonfires that the Romans didn't allow the Jews to have on the mountains during the time of the Romans and during the time of Rabbi Akiba. We are also told that maybe it is the fire in the heart and the fire in the eyes and the fire of the Zohar and the spirituality of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. All of these are different ideas. We know that in Mount Meron, as soon as the day arrives, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Hasidic Jews climb Mount Meron, a very mountainous and small area, to send off their bonfires. Other traditions say that we are to play with bows and arrows. Also, the idea of archery is from the word keshet, or bow, which is also the word for rainbow. And one tradition has it that there was no rainbow during Rabbi Shimon's lifetime, but only on his death on the 33rd day of this countdown did a rainbow appear. Others say that archery takes its place because the bow and arrow are reminiscent of the rebellion, the Bar Kokhba rebellion in Rabbi Akiba's dame. And so archery is associated with the day. Also, you may be aware of the idea, as we all know, that during the plague, we were not able to get our hairs cut or colored, right? We can relate to that. During that entire time, or that month, and perhaps another few days, haircuts are not allowed, but only on the 33rd day of the Omer are people allowed, Jews allowed, to get their hairs cut. And so the tradition became that a 3-year-old boy, after his 3rd birthday, would wait to get his hair cut until that day, Lag BaOmer. And so hair cutting is also an event that happens on that day. It is the happiest day on earth for all hairdressers, and it is a day that they are very busy. And many of us have seen these traditional Jewish little boys who have their hair cut very short, except for their side locks that they wear. And so that brings us to the great event that was to have occurred yesterday. And as I mentioned, on Mount Meron yesterday in Israel, on Lag BaOmer, there were weddings, there were haircuts, there were bonfires at the grave of Shimon Bar Yochai, and there was also a stampede, which claimed 45 lives and maybe more to come, and hundreds of other injuries because of the overcrowding of the event. The elephant in the room of all of this, which people do not want to mention at this moment, but need to understand, is that the Haredim, or the ultra-Orthodox, both here and in the United States, have that same sense of Rabbi Bar Yochai, which is that mystical law and Torah and study is our law, and the law of the land is not our law. And so vaccinations and the wearing of masks during a plague, they don't feel that they need to do that because they feel that they are inoculated by Torah. It's indeed kind of they are the successors of Rabbi Bar Yochai, who have not learned to live in modern society. And so their first opportunity to get together and to crowd into to areas with no social distancing, this is indeed what they did, what they had. We might remember that with Rabbi Bar Yochai, it was Rabbi Yehuda who said that, secular law has something to offer us, whether it is safety or whether it is progress. Shouldn't there be something good out of that? And originally, Rabbi Bar Yochai said no. So after the rabbi went to live in a cave for 12 years and lived only the spiritual life, he couldn't necessarily make it in the outward culture. And one of my colleagues, Rabbi Jeff Salkin, pointed out in an essay today that if we go into a cave and we live, it's as if we are in the womb, we're passively fed, they live like naked infants, and they indulge themselves in only spirituality, but not reality. In other words, when students are in perpetual yeshiva, where they have all of their physical needs met, they are subsidized, they don't have to pay taxes, they don't have to indeed participate in the army or the laws of secular society. In some ways, they become very, very vulnerable. And that indeed, I think, is what we saw, unfortunately, in this little town, which is not built for huge crowds such as it was. That overcrowding of a tiny space to celebrate a rabbi indeed made them at a cave, at a tomb, made them indeed, some of them unfortunately, not be able to live in this world. Those who expect God's law alone to save them and no civil regulations indeed have placed their safety in God's hands. And indeed, in this case, they needed some of the safeguards of their secular society to keep them safe. And so these are some of the societal questions that we will talk about and we will think about in weeks to come. These are issues that Jews have grappled with, and the state of Israel has grappled with, and the state of New York that also houses many of the mystical Hasidic Jews who try to live by God's law alone. Right now, we know that we have to pray for the victims. We pray for healing for all who are injured. We mourn for all those who are died. Among those, children died and fathers, a newly engaged man, a famous singer, many noted scholars and individuals we are finding out from Cleveland, from New York, who were there to visit and have this pilgrimage festival. It was meant to be a festival of life, and unfortunately for 45 and perhaps more, it is a festival for death. And so we remember them, we add their names with our own as we turn to our Kaddish prayer, our yahrzeit observance on this Shabbat. And we ask if there's anyone who would like to add names, to type them into our comments here or to be prepared to say them in a moment. On this Shabbat, though, we mark the yahrzeit of Randy Goldstein, Leah Marie Karp, Louis P. Landerman, David Goldberg, Berta Sherman, Miriam Jacobson, Jacob Naiman, Shirley Conti, Joseph Sachs, Martin Summers, Mimi Wallenstein, John D. Aldridge II, Libby Elenko, and Adam Nelson. On this Shabbat, we are marking Shaloshim, or the end of the first month of mourning for Rabbi Michael J. Cook, as well as Jill Beckerman, Scott's mom, who we remember. Are there any other names that we add to our list for yahrzeit?
Dolores McLeod Goins.
Marissa Factora.
So for them all, and for all who are mourning, and all of those who want to remember any of the Jewish people who have lost their lives, either in celebration or in just the marking of Judaism, we say the Kaddish prayer to give thanks to God for the gift of their lives. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, V'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael v'agala uvizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shamei Rabba Mivarach Leolam Ul Almei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpoar V'yitraman V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei Dekudeshat Berichu La'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbachata V'nechemata Da'amiran B'alma V'imru. Amen. Yehi Shalama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all of Israel, to all the world. And we say, Amen. And before our closing song, which Mary has to decide which one it is, she's thinking, we raise our Kiddush cups. You'll notice I ran away a few moments ago. That's because this fell down and I lost all my Kiddush wine. But we raise our cups in thanksgiving and a toast to l'chaim, to celebration, to light, to life. Everything that Lag BaOmer and all of our festivals are meant to promote. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav b'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lama'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lamikra'e kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim kivanu v'charta Biotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-shabbat. Amen. L'chaim. Mary, is that wine in your thermos? Yes, it is. And we are told that on Lag BaOmer, it was the day that the double portion of manna came down from heaven as well in biblical days. So hopefully you have a double portion of challah to enjoy on this Shabbat. And we lift up whatever our wheat from the earth is and say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. And what's it going to be?
Oh, no announcements? Okay.
Announcements. Let's see what announcements are that you might need to know. Tomorrow, we will be meeting in person for our final Tanakh study as we finish the Bible after 28 years. Those people who would like to join us in person will be in Levin Hall. We ask that people mask and socially distance. We are not going to have our usual buffet meal, but people can bring their own food. But we do have just a little bit of champagne to toast the end of an era, and honey, of course, for the sweetness of Torah. And we will begin in a couple of weeks the whole Apocrypha, which will be our next big effort for the next 28 years. On Sunday, there won't be class online, but instead Rabbi Azrael has sent out some events for families to be involved in Tikkun Olam for Tikkun Olam Day. And so you will not be logging on, but hopefully working with your families for that. And I don't know, does anyone else have any additional good and welfare? I'm not seeing any. And so what's it going to be, Mary?
Can I do something other than what we discussed and follow my instincts?
Which is?
All right. I want to stay with the Omer, but on a lighter side of what we discussed.
Okay.
All right. You ready? Some of you were here a few weeks ago when we did this, and
Oh, wait.
I'm not doing that one.
Oh, you are. This is,
Yeah.
these are challahs that someone made for Lag BaOmer.
Oh, cool.
And to show you.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And while Mary is teaching us about that, you can enjoy the counting of the Homer.
Do you want that one?
Yeah.
'Cause I was thinking this. If you still want that, I'll do it. after.
49, no, 49.
Is that
Do
what you
your
want?
thing.
You want that one? Because I'm
Do it.
feeling sun
Go for
comes up, sun goes down, stars are bright, moon is round. Search for answers in the sky as the clouds go rolling by. Take the chains from our wrists, writing laws, making lists. Find a way to live as one with the people we learn from. Counting the days from Pesach to Shavuot, my blessings are shining bright. Counting the days from freedom to enlightenment, bringing the Torah to life. 7 weeks, count each day, plant the seeds, start to pray. Yerushalayim calls you home. I won't let you fight alone. Counting the days from Pesach to Shavuot, my blessings are shining bright. Counting the days from freedom to enlightenment, bringing the Torah to life. Bringing the Torah to life. And if you still want, I can do the other one too. Since you had the counting the Homer, you're muted.
Yep.
Since you had the counting the Homer up there, if we want to end it light, I can do that. That's your call.
I think that was a perfect song. We hope that we bring Torah to light as we go ahead and march on to Shavuot, which we have an event in our parking lot on Shavuot as well. So count down the days till we are together. And we wish those around Shabbat Shalom.
You notice that there's that's 7 again. That's 7 weeks.
7, everything's in
Every-
7.
That 7's a special number.
Definitely. So we wish each of you Shabbat Shalom and peace to
Shabbat
those
Shalom.
who
Shabbat
need
Shalom.
and good thoughts and happiness and joy for those who are celebrating a festive evening.
Shabbat Shalom, Marlene.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Lorraine.
See some of you tomorrow.
Seeing some of you tomorrow.
Lori, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
I got the kids tomorrow, so I won't be able to. I got the boys and the dog. My
Shabbat Shalom,
son's dog.
Indianapolis.
Good to see you in the
Good to
other
see you,
time zone.
Meredith.
Thank you. No, we're in the same time zone.
Oh, are you
Yeah,
We're in Eastern. Yeah.
always or just? Okay.
No.
they
Yeah.
don't have that. They don't have that anymore.
Okay.
They
so
lost their minds and decided to join us at changing clocks all the time.
Yeah.
That's right.
We
Thank
How
thank
behind
you,
I am.
Lorraine.
We
Thank you,
learned
Lorraine. Yeah, and now there's talk of going back to the Central Time. But
What, for good? Full time?
yeah, Yeah. There's talk of it. That doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Oh,
I
my
think there's
son's
talk
on
of
his
us
way
staying on,
from Lawrence.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we're glad to see you whatever time it is there.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
right.
We're glad to be here. This is my friend Judy. She's
Hi.
president.
Hi,
of our
Judy.
temple.
Hi,
I wanted,
Wonderful.
I wanted her to see how a real temple runs.
And this was it?
You picked us? Yeah.
This is what you selected?
Oh, I'm sorry. You must have clicked on the wrong link.
I don't think so.
It is a pleasure.
Well, it's always good
Well,
to see
welcome.
you.
Yeah,
And we're glad you're here.
yeah. I talk about you a lot.
Yeah.
And
Well.
one of my friends in one of the committees said, you know, we know all about Temple Beth, or could you just refer to it as that other temple? I say, sure.
Oh, she's.
Hey, we're a tough act to follow, you know?
But let me tell you, how many years was it? Just a few before we actually got our own building? Wasn't
We
it right at the
started in that
beginning?
building. We started, the church was still there for maybe a year and a half. They were still there and we shared it with them, but we were in there from the start because we had the option. I mean, we had the lease. We rented for a year and a
Yeah.
half. And then we they marched away and we got the whole thing.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Mhm. So, yep.
So here we are, 49 days to count the Omer. There you go. Woo!
Yeah.
You want just a little bit? Let's just do one verse. There we go. Just to hear it for fun. On Passover, the second night, it starts, he said to me. The Omer is counted in 7 weeks, you see. Between Pesach and Shavuot, you know mathematically there must be 49 days to count the Omer. After it's dark, Mark, at the end of my reef steep. Do it in shul, shmul. Just count with me. I'm doing this for you, Myrna. You know that. Look for the star tomorrow. Just be sure to make the bracha. A rev is the key, sweet. Count Svirot with me. That's the shortened version.
Thank you.
After your beautiful message, I just felt that other song fit it. Did you feel that also, Rabbi?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
And we appreciate having Mary. It certainly added some new tunes and new prayers and new spirituality. So we're glad she was here with us. She jumped on and said she was willing to do it. And I'm like, oh, good.
I miss doing services with you because we used to do the choir thing together, but then she just gave it to me. I don't know if that's good or bad. She just gave it to me. So now I don't see her anymore. And this is nice. It's so nice to see you. Thank you.
And nice to be together. So everyone come tomorrow if you want. Myrna,
Yes.
you want to come in at 10?
No.
So far.
I'm planting hostas.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
No. I'm watching somebody plant hostas for me.
In your yard.
Do you
Right.
have a do you
Much
have,
not
better.
so far. I drive out there all the time.
do you have a
Drive
freeze
in.
warning tonight too, Myrna?
Pardon me?
Do you guys have a freeze warning tonight also?
Yeah.
No.
No, for some reason, Judy,
We,
we only have services 3 times a month. We, and
she's
if
asked if
it's,
we had a freeze warning.
No.
we have a freeze warning.
Yeah, we have a freeze warning tonight. A
Oh, no,
frost
we do not.
warning.
No, we
No,
do
we do
not.
Okay.
Ah,
I was gonna say it might be a
Myra,
little
Myra, what synagogue, what temple do you belong to?
Congregation Beth Shalom, it's a Reformed congregation.
I know what it is. Yeah.
Oh,
brand
okay.
new.
Yeah, 10 years old.
Baby.
just a baby.
It's a baby.
Or
Mhm.
when you had
Yeah.
just 10
Is it
years.
suddenly making you feel old, Judy? Is that?
I
Or we're
don't
like, what,
remember. I don't
3.5
remember where we
times
were
that,
at
or-
10 years old.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Lorraine? Were you here there too? Were you here then?
By 10, I was here.
You were here? Okay. And I know Myrna was.
I
Renee,
Not at the
94.
beginning.
I'm a founding member.
Those were our
Myrna
heyday.
started it.
County.
Yeah, I was there from day one.
That's
Those
still
were
my
the
dad
heydays.
downstairs, but a different
In the
Steve.
Davis's basement.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
it.
Services still. Oh, it's
And
still going on.
the congregation was a couple years old before I joined.
Get off it.
What's surprising, we didn't see a kitty cat. No kitty cat.
Oh, didn't
sales.
you
that's
see? He
right.
knocked the computer over while I was reading the cottage list.
No, I didn't see.
Yes.
Aw.
Oh, I forgot to